Hello and welcome to the Mitre 10 Cup Show Round 4. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for predictions and opinion. And tonight, what are we going to talk about? We are going to talk about Round 4 of the Mitre 10 Cup, funnily enough. We'll also have a look in on how the Farah Palmer Cup went. They had their first round this weekend with 3 games. And then we'll also look forward to Round 5. And when I say we, who do I mean? Well, it's myself and Stephen's back. How are you doing, sir?
Good evening, Paul. Once again, privilege and a pleasure to be on the TDM, and also want to say hello to all your Patreons out there who are no doubt wondering why we're a touch late.
Well, yeah, 2 minutes late. Sorry, folks. And the reason we're a couple of minutes late is because basically I'm, as you can tell by my backdrop, I'm not in my normal studio, and that's because I'm up in Auckland looking after one of my sick daughters. So she's nothing serious, just having to be off school and stuff. But hence, yeah, normal service will resume in probably next week, actually. So that's. But yes, do enjoy, and let's get straight into the action. We kicked off with Wellington versus Counties. Now, I went for Counties in this one. I think you went for actually you went on the show last week, so I don't know who you went for, but I was predicting Counties this one because basically Wellington's issues, as we always know, has been for many years, is their scrum. Counties' strength is their scrum, and that's really how this kicked off. Counties pack went to work and they bashed over. They built up a lead and looked like they were in with a good shout of winning this one, only for Wellington to come basically for Counties to run out of steam and Wellington to come back. I think it was a draw running into the final minutes from memory, and then they scored after the hooter to take the lead. So yeah, a real lesson from Wellington here on that you have to play the full 80 minutes.
Yeah, very much so. We look back at this game, and Counties could count themselves really unlucky that they either didn't win this game, or didn't actually share the points at the end of the day. Once again, you mentioned before this Wellington team the issues that they do have up front. One thing that they have got going though, they've got an incredibly hard-working loose forward trio, and the likes of Duplessis, Karifi, Ben Nicholas as well, the number 8, and Kafatolu. And those guys played some really big minutes. I know Kafatolu and Karifi were pretty much on there for the whole 80-odd minutes. And those guys just absolutely worked their backside off. Even though they do get done at set-piece scrum times. I've also got a special mention for James Blackwell. Not one of the biggest locks around, but boy, he carries hard into contact.
No, absolutely. They were hardworking, and as I say, they did have to play the full 80 to get this one. Counties' defence was very impressive. They had to defend for pretty much the whole of the second half and held Wellington out until really the last 5 minutes, where we had Proctor going over out wide, and then I say after the hooter, a really tired Counties side, meaning that Lions stole this one from under their noses, and for a team that's Wellington, it's kind of, where are they at? It's hard to tell at the moment, because they lost that opening one was against Hawke's. They drew with Hawke's Bay, didn't they, as well? So they're one of those sides that they've got backs to die for. Let's be honest, and they can rip teams to pieces, but they just can't. They just don't have the heavy carriers. They don't have the set piece, which means they're always fighting an uphill battle against teams like Counties, against Hawke's Bay. You're looking at who are both, and also Bay of Plenty if they come up against them. I can't. Let's see, they do this coming weekend. 3 sides that really are based around their pack, and when Wellington come up against those kind of sides, they're going to struggle. They got out of jail this time, but they didn't against Hawke's Bay, and we'll see how they go against Bay of Plenty this coming weekend.
Yeah, Paul, a couple of crazy things about this game. Counties Manukau got a yellow card in the 75th minute to the replacement hooker Maka, and then 2 minutes later at the 77-minute mark, Billy Proctor went in for the try. So they were behind 22-15 excuse me, with 3 minutes to go. So that'll probably disappoint Daryl saw the most, that they just didn't quite close it out. One thing I will say, somebody who's offering a lot of variety in this Wellington backline is Jackson Garden-Bishop, and he just seems to have developed this nice little cross kick into space, or the cross kick pass ball, and that seems to be working really well for Wellington.
No, absolutely. Yeah, Garden-Bishop is playing a lot better than I appreciated he could do, to be honest. Obviously, we know him from Super Rugby with Hurricanes, where he's mainly playing backup to Bowden Barrett, so it doesn't get a lot of time, and it's not his team. Whereas here, it is his team. He is the man, and he runs things, and with that extra responsibility, I think is coming. This is bringing that out of him. Is the good play. We followed that up with a Ranfurly Shield challenge. Otago finished this one 37-20. But Turbos really were not going to die wandering in this one. They threw it around a lot. Unfortunately, quite a few of those offloads just didn't go to hand. Luckily for them, when they were getting over the gain line, it didn't matter too much but when they didn't get that front football, those offloads were basically giving the ball away. Interesting pack by Turbos, with locks playing both 6 and 7 in Liam Mitchell and Nick Croswell. So this was a big pack from Manawatu.
Yeah, you're right. They also had Hughes. Never seen the guy Tom Hughes before, but boy, he looked a big, sizable middle rower as well. And of course, you add in the likes of Jackson Hemmerpaul, who I thought in a losing team, Paul, was just it was like there were 14 Jackson Hemmerpauls on the field. He was popping up all over the place, and for a guy who'd pretty much just been told that he hadn't quite made the cut, I thought that was the perfect response to the to let people know, hey, I'm still there. I know I haven't been selected, but hey, look at my output. And I thought he was just absolutely amazing. In fact, probably close to my MOTM, to be honest. He was very good.
He did play. He did play very well in a losing cause. But I mean, this Turbo side, the problem is that they just leak points, don't they? And Otago, really, when they got their opportunities, they took them. And yeah, that was the sort of the big difference here. Is that Otago took opportunities, whereas Manawatu just couldn't. But Otago were just doing enough to keep themselves in front. We saw last weekend how North Harbour beat Southland by just doing enough. Otago here again, they just did enough against Manawatu, which is a bit concerning for Otago, considering Manawatu are pretty simply the second weakest side in this competition, aren't they?
Yeah, unfortunately for them, you're definitely right. It'll be interesting to see what sort of stuff we get in the chat room, because I think there was a little bit of controversy in this game in and around the official pool. It just seemed to me that the Turbos really didn't get a lot of love in this game, and yet there was a try there disallowed. To me, there didn't seem to be a heck of a lot in it. I didn't think the player would actually get to the ball, and there was another situation where I thought Otere Black was actually, whilst he was not in the defensive line, he was basically cleaned out illegally. Now, I don't know what the difference is between cleaning out, say, for example, a guy who doesn't receive the ball when you're attacking, or even a guy who's in the defensive line. If you're cleaning out a guy in the defensive line, regardless of whether he can't make their tackle, it's, to me, at the end of the day, it's still a penalty. So it just seemed like all the love fell towards the home side.
And that's part of home advantage, isn't it? That kind of tends to happen, mainly subconsciously. Let's be honest, rather than definitely not conscious by the by the officials. There are a couple of times when Otago managed to work themselves mismatches, took them like 17 phases, so that they could carry. They did manage to have some sort of ball retention at times, And I say it was just a matter of just about doing enough. Because that 17-point margin makes it look easy, but it wasn't a 17-point game.
No. It was very, very close, and I thought just at a time when Manawatu needed to hold the ball, Jamie Booth tried a little chip, which just went too far, and it just gave an opportunity to release that pressure valve. Listen, a couple of other players we should mention as well. Listen, fantastic performance from Vilamoni Koroi as well. Picking up 3 tries in a Shield Challenge defence is no mean feat. But I've also got to mention Josh Ioane. God, he looked class in that game, didn't he, Paul?
Yes, he does. And Otago really need that calming presence to run things. He makes a massive difference to them. One thing I would say though, okay, and this is particularly about the Sky commentary for this, is that it's just another game of rugby. This thing's like, oh, you can't get away with that in a Ranfurly Shield defence. Guys, you can't get away with that in a rugby game, full stop. At the end of the day, you've got to keep control of the ball, play in the right areas of the pitch, score more points than the opposition. It doesn't matter if it's Ranfurly Shield or not. Yes, there's more pressure and around this, and some teams will go into their shells when they shouldn't do. But on the whole, the same rules apply in this. So they try and make it some mythical, different thing. It's having listened to the singing in the tunnel when Otago took it off Waikato at the end of last season, you can hear how much it means to teams to get it. But at the end of the day, when they're actually over that whitewash, it's still 15 on 15 with the same referees, the same assistant referees.
Yeah.
It's still the same game.
Well, interesting enough, that official was very much maligned. Glenn Jackson, obviously not picked to go to the Rugby World Cup this year. I was getting a couple of texts pretty much from mates who, admittedly, are Turbo supporters, pretty much confirming why isn't it the World Cup in 2019. So that was a little bit hilarious. Listen, sometimes you might feel you don't get your luck, but you've got to take your luck and your opportunities when the door opens. We spoke about Jamie Booth before with the little kick. The game right then, to me, was right on an edge. And I think they just needed to be patient and stay in the fight. And if they could have captured the lead with several minutes to go, who knew? Who knows how that turns out?
Yep, absolutely. But they bottled it in the end. We followed that up with Canterbury versus Southland, 80-0. Now, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good your opposition is. If you're going to miss 10 tackles in the first 20 minutes and 19 by half time, if you're going to miss a tackle every other minute, you're going to lose the game. And that's unfortunately what happened to Southland here. This has been Southland's problem all season. They leak points. We've seen them counter-attacking. They can score, sure. They didn't this weekend against Canterbury, who put up a good defence. But this is a Southland team that can score points. What they can't do is defend. Unfortunately, we saw that in spades at the weekend.
I was about to say, Paul, after 11 minutes, the score was 0-0.
Yeah, true. They started okay, and then the floodgates opened. The other problem with this game was, if you're watching it on TV, good luck figuring out who was who, because the jerseys on these two sides are so similar. Yeah. It was farcical. You could tell who the ref was. The ref stood out a mile. Everyone else though looked, your only idea of who's on which side was which way they were facing, basically.
Yeah. Listen, credit to Canterbury. They never really took the foot off, and let's not forget they were looking for the first win of the season, and the guys coming in probably wanted to make a statement. And make a statement they did, but it's not too bad when you can. We'll let you play Ryan Crotty today. So that's pretty handy. Then Patrick Osborne doesn't make the fin squad, and then he comes back into the side, and you're going to yourself, seriously, from a Southland point of view, and from a Southland boys point of view, man, I know them and their coaching staff. God, they'll be hurting, but it just says, listen, they've showed some real incremental improvements in some of the games they've played so far, but I think it was a little bit unacceptable. If you're not going to make tackles, you really are going to get hurt, especially against a team that was really desperate for a win. I know probably for some of the patrons listening, they're kind of wondering why a scoreline that big. I know there are some issues down in Southland Club Rugby. It's the quality of the club rugby is not that great. There's a lot of these guys, the new coaches took over last year. They're basically, it's a bit of an investment in these guys that they've got in the team. So, man alive, I'd be surprised if a lot of these guys in their career get beaten by this score again. Hopefully not, Paul.
No, hopefully not. I mean, this doesn't do anybody any good seeing scorelines by this. Sure, Canterbury needed this kind of win to get themselves back on track this season, because they have started, as poorly as anyone can remember in living memory. I don't think they've ever lost 3 games in the trot, or the opening 3 games in the trot before. So, yeah, this has been the worst season ever for Canterbury, and they needed a performance this weekend. And they put it in. I mean, Mitch Drummond also was injured last game. He came back into the side as well and played really well, running great support lines. This is going to give Canterbury the confidence they need to get their season going.
Yeah, probably not the lead up that Canterbury needed going into their next game against Auckland. Excuse me, next Sunday, I believe, next Sunday afternoon, and poor old Southland. Well, they head up to Napier to take on Hawke's Bay. So listen, we can only wish them well, and hopefully hope that they can find something from somewhere.
Absolutely. For Southland, their entire season for me comes down to round 6. I think it is when they host Manawatu. When those two sides face each other, that's going to be the opportunity of both of those two teams to actually get their only win of the season. Put bluntly, I think if Manawatu are at home against Otago, I can't remember if they're playing. The Manawatu lost to Otago, didn't they, this weekend? So, yeah, basically, I think that's going to be the defining game and the final as far as these two teams are. Those two teams are concerned.
Agree.
Now, just a very quick commercial break, folks. Link down below in the notes is how you can get to become a supporter of DrivingMaul. You've heard Stephen talk about Patreons already, and that's where you can support me. To cover all these games. I'm trying to drive around 20 odd of these games this season, and basically I don't get paid for that, so I need some help with petrol at the very least, please. So please go and click on there, become a supporter of DrivingMaul, help me produce all this free content for you, and also you'll get access to exclusive content on there as well. Next up, Northland versus Hawke's Bay. You were commentating this one?
Yeah, no. Lucky enough to sit in and call this game with former All Black halfback Ben Kenny. First thing I've got to say, first of all, congratulations to the Northland Rugby Union. It was a club day up in the far north, and they put a lot of promotional work in to get a lot of the clubs along. They put on a lot of free buses to a lot of clubs who could actually get to the game, and it turned out really well. The original figure that I thought was around about 6,000, but officially I got told today it was over 7,000 that attended the game, and at a time where some of the might 10 cup crowds are a little bit depressing, to say the least. When we're watching on the box, it was refreshing to see a union that's done a lot of work to basically still get their public behind their team, despite the way that team has been travelling, Paul. And I suppose there was a little.
And one thing to remember is, Northland, it takes about 4 to 5 hours to drive across this province. Okay, folks. So for some people to come and travel and watch their team is an all-day affair. It is like a 3-hour drive there, watch the game, 3-hour drive home again. So some of these clubs have made a real effort to get there for club day. And yeah, Northland are one of the teams that's really engaging with their community really well and getting good turnouts from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'll go along with that. Listen, on the game itself, I know there was a bit of apprehension going into the game, especially after leaking 95 points in their 2 previous games. The Taniwha, and also if you basically look down the team list, there were several big names not there. Obviously, the 2 obvious ones are they missing a Ranger and Robinson, but also they lost another 4 leading players going into the game as well. So the guys that stepped in, I've got to say, did a pretty good job, Paul. And they started well enough. Early lead, got out to 15-5 as well. But I know talking to the Northern skipper Sam Knock at the end of the game, something that they really spoke about pre-game was not giving silly penalties away and giving Hawke's Bay a leg up into the 22. Did they listen to that advice? Probably not. Probably not, you've got to say. And ultimately, if you give a team like Hawke's Bay that opportunity to win a line out and drive, they're going to punish you every time. Interestingly enough, though, chatting to Gareth Evans, the Hawke's Bay number 8, I said to him, listen, how much time do you actually, and effort do you put into that? And he goes, listen, not much at all. He said, the great thing about it, the guys are pretty well versed in their jobs or their roles, and they know exactly what to do. Refreshing.
That's very surprising because they are one of the best line-up Mauls, one of the packs. I mean, Prack in the live chat says he thought the ref was pretty poor in this game. I don't know. There's been a few comments about refs across quite a few of the games, to be honest, and something that I heard secondhand. I'll talk about in the next game, but the referees are they're trying their best. They do get critiqued during the week and work with the referees, the head of referees. They do try their best, and hence we'd like not to sort of have a go at them on the channel. But again, Debrasini's boot was the only thing that really kept Northland in this game in that second half. But when you're knocking over 3s and the opposition is scoring 5s and 7s, then the game just goes away from you. Which is what kind of happened.
Yeah, very much so. Northland will be really disappointed because their set piece in the main was reasonably solid. I really enjoyed the scrummaging battle up front because Hawke's Bay have been going very, very well in this particular area. But I thought one of the players who was absolutely exceptional for the Bay was Isaiah Walker Leawere, who's a very big unit, and he carried strongly, but he was able to offload, and he was very good. And I actually thought another guy for Hawke's Bay who was very good was the halfback Folau Whakatava, who I think he's probably one of the criticisms of Folau in the past. Probably tries to do too much, but I think he basically went in and he just directed. His big forwards got him over the advantage line, and he just cleared ball very, very quickly, and that seemed to work for the Magpies.
Yeah, no, I heard that. I mean, this is one of the 2 games I could only watch. I got highlights for because I was at the Waikato Auckland Farah Palmer Cup game during this one. And I guess what surprised me was how long Northland stayed in this one. To be honest, I wasn't expecting them to be in with much of a shout, but they were in with a shout. They evened it up just after half time, I think it was. So they were in this game for sort of 45, 50 minutes before it ran away from them.
I was going to say just after half they scored a try, and a fantastic run too from Sam Kerr. It looked like Brodie Retallick galloping down the middle of the paddock. I think he took a pass just on inside his own half and really was just dragged down by the quickest guy, Mason Emerson, 5 metres from the line, and then the very impressive Jacob Machu, who just belies his size. I'd say he's probably about 103 kgs, 5'11", but man, he's just got plenty of mongrel, plenty of ticker, carries hard, and is a very similar type of player to probably Jordan Tofua. Yep, you're right. Couple of other good performances. Jack Debrasini, once again, very good. Scott Gregory, I thought, was very, very good. When carrying, really looks the goods, and I think is only going to get better and better, whether he's playing for the Highlanders or New Zealand Sevens next year. And he's
going to when he's down at the Sevens, he's going to have a shootout with McKay, who's playing very well for for Canterbury, for that Mackay, sorry, for that 15 jersey. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and just a quick mention, Temo Mayana-Vanua, the Fijian under-20 lock who came out to New Zealand last year, probably struggled to find his feet at the moment, probably getting used to the cold more than anything else, but probably had his best game in a Cambridge Blue. And you're right, the Northland boys, I think it was when just basically looking at my notes here, I think with right on 60 minutes, Debrasini kicked the penalty to be a point behind, and pretty much the Hawke's Bay scored again and pretty much wrapped the game up with a try to Nedia Formai, who I think scored 3 tries in the game. So we're doing in hat-tricks on the weekend, Paul.
Yep, absolutely. We followed that one up, and I was at this one for Waikato versus Auckland, 20 all, and yes, there was a lot of stuff going on in this one. The referee really was more than happy to let it go. I mean, one of the comments that apparently was something along the lines of, he's not hurt, who cares? And you're like, what? No, that's a penalty all day long. And yes, as far as ref was concerned, it's like, hey, this is rugby, boys. If you want to smash each other up, you can do. Just don't go too. And when you've considered what's some of the things that are being called at the moment, this one was definitely different. Waikato did really well, had a great start into this one, but then handling errors 5-1, penalty count 7-1. How they kept themselves in this one, Auckland will be asking, because yes, Waikato, I say they started really well, but and unfortunately I missed that because I was doing post-match interviews still from the other game. But yeah, it's amazing how they will be asking themselves, how did this one get away from us? Sorry, I talked about how did this one get away from us, because Waikato did make a lot of mistakes in this game.
Yeah, listen, when you've got a scrum that dominant, there were times watching the game too where I thought Auckland kept it in the scrum, and you could see that they were basically playing for the penalty. There was one scrum I recall where they pushed Waikato back a good 10 metres or so, and pretty much Jonathan Ruru was hanging the washing out looking for the penalty, but it didn't come. But I noticed it happened on a few occasions. But I suppose if you're not doing anything illegal, Paul, even though you're going back at a rate of knots, it's a case of carry on. I think they'll just wonder what actually went wrong there. They had the opportunities. I must admit that game, often you see games where first fives just go to chew a little bit too much ground off to get there, to propel their team closer to the try line. I think I can remember probably 2 or 3 kicks in this game not finding their marker as well, Paul, which is a disappointing, really, really disappointing when you've been handed a penalty.
It is, and this was one of these strange ones where Auckland had the better of the rugby in the first half, but were trailing 14-10. Waikato had the better of rugby in the second half, but only scored, but then it ends up being 20 all. The team that seemed to have the dominance in territory and pressure didn't seem to be able to rack up the points from it. Auckland didn't help themselves. I mean, a late hit on the kicker, and obviously where the ball lands is where they get the penalty from. So a clearing kick suddenly turns into 3 points, because with those sort of things, that kind of discipline really hurts Auckland. Akira Ioane towards the end there, and this is what I was talking about the ref letting a lot go away. Akira Ioane went in with a shoulder after was sort of blown into a ruck, and he's like, well, yeah, the guy stood up. Who cares? Now, the people in look, I would say I was. It's in Waikato, and they were like, well, yeah, we kept a player on about half time that did something similar. This wasn't a one way or the other. This was the referee just let a lot of niggle go. And that, unfortunately, marred this game a little bit.
That was a really poor decision in my book, Paul, because I think the ball was already in the first five's hands when he decided to clean the player out on the floor. It was a poor decision, and quite frankly, Fletcher Smith should have been lining up another shot at goal to win the game. And you kind of, a lot of people ask questions about Akira Ioane, why he's not wearing an All Black jersey. Well, if you saw those images, and I've got to say also, he just looks like he's carrying a wee bit. at the moment, Paul. Just some of the images I saw him, and once again, to be honest, the only things I actually remember about Akira Ioane in that game is once again getting into verbals and basically giving away what should have been maybe a possible winning penalty at the end of the game, Paul.
Now, a guy who is totally different, Caleb Clark, got to interview him after the game, and there is a boy who has very polite, happy to talk, really nice chap. Was very impressed. It's the first time I've talked to him, but he's clearly having a good playing well this season. He's got the strapping off his leg, off his I think it was left knee that he had well strapped up for quite a lot of Super Rugby. So it looks like he's getting healthier as well. And I say a really enjoyable guy to chat to post game. From Waikato, I had a chat with Dwayne Sweeney. He's been taking a bit of flack in the forums, to be honest, with his play, but is an experienced head in what is a really young back line that they've got there. You've got Quinton Tapia, who was playing under 20s this year, at 13, at 15, Rivers Rehana, who's under 19, Fletcher Smith, he's not an old, he's only like 20, 21 as well. You need that old head in there to give it a bit more, to give a bit of experience, and he's providing that really well. I've talked to him about scrummaging because when James Tucker went off, he went on and became a flanker. It's a fun interview. Again, that's available on YouTube as well. So go check that out on the channel. But one of the things I did talk to say to Alamaya at the end was Auckland now 2 draws, 2 wins. Have they forgotten how to lose? Similar, like Gatland has talked about Wales. He had a little chuckle and said he preferred to have the wins than draws. But now Auckland are going pretty well this season and getting away with, or perhaps getting some results when, or I say not losing. So picking up points as they go along. After that one, we had North Harbour versus Bay of Plenty. I was up there for this one as well, and boy, will North Harbour feel hard done by. Going in, the only reason that Bay of Plenty sort of kept in this game was they had an interception try in that first half, and then also on the buzzer had gone. North Harbour had a penalty and decided, we're going to kick into Bay of Plenty's half, have a line out, and try and attack them. What do? They lose the line out. It goes to the hooker. Bay of Plenty's hooker makes a break down the wing, puts a crossfield kick in like a winger. And you're like, where did that come from? From a hooker, one phase, bang! Suddenly, Bay of Plenty are in the lead with 2 tries. In all honesty, they probably didn't deserve, or at least it didn't come from sort of structured attacking play that they put on. Harbour will be wondering how this one really got away. Bay of Plenty now, they've played 4 games. 3 of their games have been against Premiership opposition. They're a Championship side, and they have won 2 of those and got a losing bonus point. They've had a fantastic start to the season.
Yeah, I've got to agree. That's not bad at all. Their start is almost as good as former Auckland University hooker Kurt Eklund's run down the touchline and centering kick. That was pretty sensational, you've got to say, and basically. And
if you want to hear what he says about it, then again, I interviewed him after the game, and the interviews on the channel. We had a good laugh about about his wing play.
He's probably been practicing that for years at every training, and it's got to come off sometime. But I thought they did very well. But on saying all that, Harbour with their dominant scrum, we think back to the second half. Man, I lost count how many opportunities they could have really kicked that goal. I know it.
Yep.
Yeah, you just shake your head. A lot of those kicks were very, very kickable kicks, and they really weren't getting much pay dirt for those kicks over to the corner. They eventually got the try, but they used in that time, Paul. They used so much time, if you know what I mean. And I recall they also during that time used up so much time because Bay of Plenty had lost Mitchell Carpick to the bin as well. I think around about the 62nd minute, I think it was, when I was watching the game. I'll just basically check on my little back finder here.
64th minute, but anyway. 64th minute, you're quite right. That second half was dominated by by Harbour, but they just didn't pick up the points. They got one try in that second half, which they didn't convert, and they had a multitude of kickable penalties. They kept turning them down. They kept kicking to the corner, and they kept failing to go over.
Yeah,
And as you said, and also kicking to the corner, but kicking too far and trying to show off. And then when that happens, the next one they kick to the corner is out by the 22 line because he's playing. He's scared of kicking it dead. So. That's one of the things. Yep.
Unfortunate for Harbour, but like I say, full credit to Bay of Plenty. They're probably thinking they'll be sitting. They're probably thinking to themselves, "Gee, we're actually not sitting too badly at the minute." You think back to that game against Auckland, they lost. They picked up a point out of that game. They picked up 5 points from the 5 points from the Waikato game. And now they've picked up, was it another 4 or 5 points from that game yesterday?
Yep, four yesterday. Yep,
another 4 points yesterday, and it just gets better for Bay of Plenty because they and once again I don't know who came up with their draw, but they play Wellington next week. So how crazy is that? Are they in the right division?
They're gonna well. Chief says, "I never see my beloved Steamers win a premiership. They won't win a premiership. They might win a championship, but they."
Yeah, they're going well.
They are going extremely well. It does also mean that they've got all of their cross competition games out the way in the first half of the season. They have 5 games against championship opposition. That will include a game against Southland, a game against Manawatu. So they've got a great run in, and they've got opportunities against Hawke's Bay, Taranaki, and they've played Otago's. Who's the other one down there? Gone blank. Anyway, but they've got the opportunity to not only get points themselves, but to deny their competition points who are going to the who are heading toward going into those finals. So it looked like a really tough start, but the fact they've got the runs on the board means that this is it's been fantastic for Bay of Plenty.
Yeah, Paul, I think that's a real and exciting part of the championship. I think you got 3 sides looking really, really good. I mean to say, we'll get to Taranaki in a moment, but they're looking pretty good. Bay of Plenty are looking good. Hawke's Bay are looking good. Boy, how important is it going to be to get that home semi-final advantage?
Yep. Now, so Bay of Plenty has still got Northland, Manawatu, and Southland. You've got to say that's 15 points in the second half of the season. They've got to play Taranaki and Hawke's Bay, where they could, even if they just come out with those with draws, they'll have denied them opportunities for points, and they'll be in a really good situation. So, great. It's a great situation for Bay of Plenty to be in. Not so great for North Harbour though, who and we'll talk about the table later. But this was a game that they lost rather than Bay of Plenty winning. Bay of Plenty took their opportunities, but Harbour really should have done better. So the other game I didn't get to catch because as I was travelling back from that game was Taranaki Tasman. Finished 18-28. I predicted it by Tasman by 10, so I got it spot on. This is one where basically Tasman seemed to. Again, I've only seen the highlights of this one, but Tasman got their necks in front and then pulled away at half time and just sort of held Taranaki at arm's length.
Yeah, well, it started well for Tasman. Whainuku went in for a try and they were up 5-0, and then basically Taranaki just worked their way back into a game with a couple of penalties, but they probably just made the mistake of letting the foot off the pedal a little bit, and we saw another penalty to Mitch Hunt to just push it out a little bit to, I think it was 8-6 at that time, and then we saw a try to Makaleo, and then right on half time, Whainuku went in for his second try, and pretty much at 18-6 you thought, yeah, that's pretty much the end of the resistance. But one thing Taranaki did they stayed in the fight. They actually scored straight after half time, and that pretty much brought the score back to 18-13. And we all thought to ourselves, well, we got a battle on our hands. It was a victory at the end of the day that Tasman had to really, really work for. They had to pretty much pull out the stops, but Taranaki never gave the game away. Probably the one defining difference was the Taranaki line-out. They really struggled to win their own ball. And against a side like Tasman, they're going to make you pay.
They are. I mean, Tasman are going to probably got. I mean, they've dropped. In some ways, you can say they've dropped the. Actually, no, they will have got the try bonus point here, won't they? So they'll be happy with that. They got what they needed out of this. They didn't do much more than that. But with someone like Mitch Hunt at this kind of level, he's a guy running around the field very, very well. Crossfield kick was on the money for that try from memory, and yeah, he had a decent game and ran things for them. So, looking at the tables, then that puts Tasman now with 4 wins from 4 games on 19 points at the top of the table. As I mentioned, Auckland. Doing well in their defence of their title because 4 wins and 2 draws means they're second in the table on 14 points, but they're already 5 points behind Tasman and we're nearly halfway through the season. Waikato next and Wellington both on 12 points. I mean, Waikato would, they'll tell you they would have expected to be at this in this territory. I think for most pundits would have been saying they were going to be at the bottom end of this table, so they've done very well to be where they are. Counties, 1 win, 3 losses on 11 points and in 5th place.
Yeah.
How?
And really and truthfully, they should be. If they had picked up that draw, they would be sitting on 12 points, and Wellington would be sitting on 9 points. Sorry, Wellington would have been sitting on probably 9 or 10 points. So crazy, small margins, isn't it?
It is small margins, but 7 bonus points. Counties. As you can see, with that, they're scoring points.
Sure.
And they're keeping in touch. A -3 points difference with 1 win and 3 losses shows you how close their games have been. Every single one of their losses have got a losing bonus point. They've got a try bonus point in every game. They're keeping themselves in games and they're scoring tries. Then comes Harbour, 2 points behind them, a win and draw, 2 losses, and then Canterbury last. Now, Canterbury have got a fantastic stats here. Points difference plus 61 with just 1 win. But that 80-0 win has obviously messed that one around a little bit there.
And let's not forget some of their losses, bar the Tasman game. They've been tight losses as well. You've got to say. They could have turned Wellington over. Didn't quite manage to do it, and they should have probably beaten Waikato, but didn't quite managed to do it as well. I suppose when I look at that table, Paul, I do wonder about Harbour now. You can see Canterbury picking up more wins. I think they've got a game against. They've still get to play Northland as well in a crossover game, and they're going to get on the run at some stage.
I think so. It's they've got Auckland. We'll talk about next week in a second. But whilst they've got Auckland up next, then they've got Northland, Manawatu, Counties, Otago, North Harbour. Yeah, there's nobody apart from that Auckland game, maybe the Counties game. Even Counties really. That's a pretty soft run in. They've had their hard games now, and from now on, I say Auckland's a tough one, but then Northland, Manawatu, 2 ones they'll definitely win. Counties, they'll put up some resistance. Otago, they'll win. North Harbour, again, they'll put up some resistance, but you could easily see Canterbury winning all the rest of their games this season. With that, I'd say the only question might be in that Auckland one.
That'll be an interesting one, which we'll get to shortly.
Yep. Then looking at in the championship, Hawke's Bay have gone top now with 18 points, with 3 wins and a draw. They've not lost yet. Bay of Plenty sits 3 points behind them on 15 points. Taranaki then a point further back on 14 points, and it feels like those 3 teams are the 3 that are going to do something in this competition. In the championship. Otago on 10 points. I mean, they're not out of it, but they've already played Manawatu and Southland. They've had the 2 easiest. They're the only 2 teams they've beaten. So that's kind of inflating their score.
They're still yet to play Northland as well, and they play Northland up in Whangarei, and that'll probably be a must-win game for Northland. Northland should be at full strength by then as well, because they're expecting Tom Robinson and Rennie Ranger back, but hey, we'll see.
Northland then on 4 points with that 1 win and 3 losses. No bonus points yet. Manawatu, that 1 bonus point, and then Southland with 0 points. Manawatu only scored 46 points this season in 4 games. They just can't score points. That's their big problem. And Southland, 51 points. And okay, they had a bad game last weekend, but they just leak points. Different problems for those two, but still serious problems, unfortunately, for them. Before we head off into round 5, we'll have a very quick look at the Farah Palmer Cup. Now, I was at Waikato, Auckland, did post-match interviews, did the same coverage I do for the Mitre 10 Cup games. I'm going to 2 Farah Palmer Cup games this weekend at Counties and at North Harbour. And again, please, if you'd like to help support coverage of the women's game, head down to patreon.com/DrivingMaul and help me get to these games and give these games exposure, because they don't really have much. And as I say, I'm giving them the same coverage I do Mitre 10 Cup. So if you want to support women's rugby and the exposure of that, then help support me as well. I'll get around as many games as I can. Looking at the games this weekend, so Canterbury beat Wellington 57-19. Bay of Plenty lost to Counties Manukau 24-37. And with Canterbury and Counties finishing first and second last season, that's pretty much what we expected, wasn't
it? Yeah. Pretty much so as well. You kind of look at the games that Waikato Auckland game, 41-23. I mean to say. And that was, despite Auckland having eight players on debut in their starting lineup. So it just goes to show that they've probably got they've just got the depth on it. Waikato actually did pretty well. I mean to say, it was only sort of 22-13 at half time, and Waikato was still in the game. You were obviously there, Paul, but just at the end of the day, maybe Auckland a little bit too much right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting one, because you go and say, okay, Auckland had 11 debutants in the match day 23. They also had 5 Black Ferns, whereas Waikato had 1 Black Fern and 5 debutants. So whilst, sure, in some ways you're going to say Waikato perhaps had more of the experience, what they came up against was a big Auckland pack. The Auckland backline, very inexperienced, but the pack had experience, had size, and just bashed this Waikato team and that's how they came up. You got to say, massive turnaround for Auckland. Auckland came last in the Premiership last year with just 1 win, and the only reason they didn't get relegated was because Northland have entered this competition. Otherwise it would have been. But Waikato came second last year in the table. That was a very chastening experience for them, and they'll be looking to bounce back from that one. Looking quickly at the round 2 games for the Farah Palmer Cup, we've got Counties Manukau versus Manawatu. That's one I'll be at. Counties, these 2 sides finished 3rd and 4th last year, so that should be a really cracking game. Wellington Bay of Plenty, 2 teams obviously that had losses in that first round, so they'll be looking to bounce back from that. Hawke's Bay Northland. Northland, good luck. It's your first season.
Yeah.
So having the experience last year of Taranaki, whose first season it was, in 6 games, Taranaki ended up with minus 413 points difference. It's going to be a tough season for Northland, so good luck there.
Yeah, they have. I do believe they've got a couple of girls that have sort of returned to the area. Black Ferns that were basically either playing down in Counties or Auckland. Whether that's going to be enough, I don't really know. I see that New Zealand Rugby League prop Crystal Murray has basically thrown in her hat with Northland, and will be playing number 8. So I'll be actually curious to see how she makes the transition, Paul.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. See how it goes. I say I'm expecting Hawke's Bay to win that one though comfortably. Tasman North Harbour, that should be a decent game. 2 sides in the in the lower end of the championship. Auckland Canterbury. There's a big one. Canterbury won the competition last year. Auckland, as I say, started very well this one.
Where's that game being played, Paul?
That one's at no, that will be in Auckland somewhere. Not sure where though. Oh, hang on, that's the. Sorry, I know I'm doing 2 double headers this weekend. Actually, that one's at Eden Park, so I'm going to be at that one as well. Sorry, there we go. Oh, the 2 games I'm making are Counties Manukau versus Manawatu and Auckland versus Canterbury. So that's at Eden. So that will be at Eden Park on Sunday, prior to the Mitre 10 Cup game. So I'll be there. Hopefully, try and get post-match interviews and stuff like I do for Mitre 10 Cup games, as I say. Finally, Otago versus Taranaki. Taranaki, it's their second season at this level. Last season they found really tough. Hat tip to the girls for just, let's be honest, turning up. 6 games, 6 losses, minus 413 points. Remember, these aren't professional players. So hat tip to them for turning up and keeping it going, and good luck against Otago. I think it's going to be another tough season for them, but they'll having had that one season in the experience, that'll set them in obviously in good stead.
Yeah, I actually saw the Taranaki girls a couple of their games last year, and you can actually just see that the effort's going in, no question. It's just really that quality of playing against girls that have either been part of the Black Ferns or really good experienced provincial players. Girls that have been basically running around playing at this level for a while, and it's a hard thing. All you can hope for from a Taranaki point of view is just improvement, Paul.
Yep, absolutely. And look, the positive thing here is that we've got 13 out of the 14 Mitre Cup sides have got sides in this competition, and it's growing, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Talking about Mitre Cup, let's go on to round 5 then. We kick off with Manawatu versus Northland. This is a must-win game for Northland. I'd say if they, because they're definitely struggling this season, and I say that's and Manawatu also are. I'm backing Northland by 7, and they really do need that win.
Yeah, I've got to stay with Northland. I know Manawatu will be a little bit stronger. Nani Lamapi coming back into the side. I know there'll be a lot of supporters frustrated that he wasn't available for that Shield Challenge last week, but that's offset with the fact that I think they may have lost Jackson Hemapol to injury as well, Paul. Reading somewhere, so I do stand to be corrected on that. I'll have to basically look into that again. But if Jackson Hemapol plays, I think I'd give this to Manawatu because they seem to be a much better pack up front, although they will have to get their set piece right again. It did come under a little bit of pressure at times against Otago. So, boy, you know what? I think I'll go for the home side. It hurts me to say that. I'll go to the home side by 7.
I had a chat with some of the Manawatu players off the record last season, and of all the players they lost to the All Blacks, Jackson Hemapol was the one they said they missed the most. So yeah, he's a big boy. He's a big boy, but secondly, he's a very important part of that team.
Yeah.
Hawke's Bay versus Southland. Hawke's Bay by 15. Hawke's Bay are looking decent this season. Southland aren't. I'm not sure there's much more to say than that.
No, I don't. Exactly. I think probably the Hawke's Bay coaches, Mark Ozich and Dave and Josh Sims, probably going to have the luxury of probably even maybe resting a few guys, Paul. Yeah,
and we've already seen that again with teams against Southland. The teams have rested players. Counties Manukau versus Tasman. That's the Friday night game that I'm intending to get to. I say, go on.
I was about to say Tasman have actually got a very good record at Pukekohe Stadium. So I'll go Tasman. I think Tasman by 12 plus.
I've gone Tasman by 10. They are the form team in the competition at the end of the day, much as counties are doing better than perhaps we predicted pre-season. Navigation Homes Stadium, not Pukekohe Stadium. Jeez,
sorry.
Get with the sponsors.
Yeah.
North Harbour then host Waikato, so that's a Saturday game that I'll be getting to. I'm going Waikato by 5. North Harbour just make too many mistakes. They had way too many errors last weekend. And against a side like Waikato, who's full of confidence.
I'm going to go the other way, Paul.
Okay.
I think Harbour do pack a very good scrum, and I think they'll put Waikato under a ton of pressure at scrum time, and unlike yesterday, I think they'll actually take the opportunity to win. Be close though. I'm thinking maybe 6 or 7 points in it.
Prac 2, Waikato just absolutely. We're still on that one. Bay of Plenty versus Wellington. Oh, this would be a cracker in Rotorua.
Saturday night.
I'm not getting to this one as I'll be at North Harbour instead. And again, this is pretty much this is a very similar problem for Waikato, for Wellington as last weekend. The counties very much based around their scrum. Bay of Plenty very much based around their scrum. Even with Nathan Harris missing, they are a team that that thrives off their set piece. I think they will be able to go the full 80, unlike counties did. And I'm backing Bay of Plenty at home to win by 5.
Okay, Paul, I'm going to go against you again, and I'm going to go Wellington.
Cool.
12 and over.
12 and over. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Then big one at Eden Park, Auckland versus Canterbury. We've already said that Canterbury have got after this game they've got a lovely run in, so they will be stacking this game with all of their best players that they can find. Auckland, they haven't lost this season. They'll be looking at defending that, and they'll know that this is one of the key games that they're going to play if they're going to get a home semi-final.
I don't think Auckland will have the same sort of dominance that they did against Waikato at scrum time. I'm going to go the visitors by 7 and under.
I've gone Auckland by 5. They're just sneaking out those victories. Canterbury, fine. They've had one good victory. They've had one morale boosting victory, but they've definitely not been the same side this season. Finally, the Ranfurly Shield game, the last game of the round on Sunday, Otago versus Taranaki. And for me, this is where the Shield leaves Dunedin and heads to New Plymouth. Taranaki by 7.
Mate, I'm actually going to agree with you. I think Taranaki would have gained even though they were on the end of a loss yesterday. I think that was a very creditable performance against Tasman. They'll have to address their line out. I've got to say that. But if their All Blacks can fire, if you can get the likes of Te Toiroa Tahuarangi firing, and also the likes of Waisaki Naholo. There's no reason why they can't go down and lift it. And you know what? They've got a history of doing it, haven't they?
Yep. They have. Now, if you want to know where the Shield's going to go this season, you can, again, become a supporter of Driving Maul. I've done a whole video tracking where the Shield could have gone already and where it can go. Every team in the My Sen Cup, all 14 teams, could have ended up or could have touched the Ranfurly Shield at some point this season. Initially, I think some of those options are now null and void. But if you want to know all the details around about that, become a supporter and go and check out that video. So there we go. I think that's everything wrapped up there. Sim?
Yeah, definitely an interesting round of Mitre Cup rugby. The draws just keep continuing, don't they? Especially for the likes of Auckland. But probably the result of the weekend that probably stands out for me for a whole lot of sad reasons is that, unfortunately, that 80-0 pasting that Southland received. It's just, to be brutally honest, this is our premier competition under Super Rugby, and we need these teams to be very, very competitive. And unfortunately for Southland, they're in a really, really bad place at the moment. So hopefully they can keep the guys from Invercargill can keep their chins up and basically put a more substantial performance when they come up against Hawke's Bay on Friday night.
Yeah, hopefully. I don't think it'll be 80-0, but I can't see them. I think it will still be a comfortable home victory for Hawke's Bay in that one, to be honest. Thank you very much, Stephen. People check out, Stephen also calls the Northland games on Radio Sport, so when Northland are playing at home, do dial into Radio Sport to listen to his exquisite dulcet tones. And check Steve out on Twitter as well. I'll be back tomorrow night with the Hash Rugby chat, where we'll be talking about some of the international rugby that's going on. We might also touch on the NRC and a bit of Curry Cup as well, because those are also continuing. What we won't talk about is the All Blacks, because the All Blacks and also the Tonga game, because we'll talk about that on Wednesday night at 8 p.m, where we'll tell you who we think should be starting for the All Blacks 23 against Tonga. So check in for that as well. Thank you, Stephen.
Not a problem at all. And help this man out. he needs to feed his kids.
I need to feed myself as well.
Yeah, himself. Look at him. You look skinny.
Exactly. Oh dear. Paul, are you getting famous? Hey, look, I really don't care about about the fame. It'd just be nice to, and I don't really care too much about the fortune. It'd just be nice to make a small amount of money.
I'm just riding his shirt tails if he gets famous.
If buts and maybes. Thank you, everybody, and good night.